Hi guys, welcome to Wrestling Fan Open My Night here exclusively on YouTube.com. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Bear with me with my throat. I'm absolutely shattered from obviously this past week at work. At least I've got a few days off to recuperate now. As it stands, fingers crossed. But I just want to say thank you ever so much for you guys keep subscribing, obviously, and hitting that subscribe button. I'm at 90 subscribers now. 90. I couldn't believe it when I saw it before this video. Now, I want to say to every one of you guys, right? I didn't take a break from wrestling. I've still not got around to watching Double or Nothing. I've heard nothing but good things about it, which is a thumbs up for me. I'm glad AEW is still delivering their pay-per-views. But I want to say this before I get on to the main focus, obviously, of this video. Now, Kevin Knight has turned heel. I wanted to do a video on this when I found out. I think this is a fucking bold move for Tony Khan to do this. Only reason why I'm saying it's a bold move for doing it because he's one of the fan favourites of the new generation that's coming through, right? And no one was expecting it, right? And I want to say this: if it's done right, it's done it right because it's going to catch on, right? First, he attacks Darby Allin at Double or Nothing, which I've heard. Then last week, he attacked his own tag team partner. Now, I want to say this. As far as I can remember, I know this is a bold statement. I think this could be as big as the Rockers in years to come. You know, people could be talking about this in years to come if his heel run is done right, where he had the likes of Shawn Michaels talk, basically attacking Marty Jannetty through the glass window at the barbershop. It possibly have that same impact if it's done right with this heel run. Because obviously we need a bit of arrogancy and so on like that. Yeah. But the thing is, you gotta think, Swerve Strickland dropped a seed and it's grew massively in the space of where Swerve Strickland was talking to him, to executing it at the pay-per-view, to shock the world. Then this past week he attacked his tag team partner. You know? Are they plotting a seed between him and Swerve Strickland to elevate him to the next level? Because obviously Swerve Strickland is something else in AEW. And I feel like when I did that New Day video, which I was saying about on the Swerve Strickland, he's going to come back. Is he going to bring in people with him? Is Swerve Strickland teasing towards starting his own stable? Now that would be an interesting fact because Swerve Strickland has made himself more of a household name in AEW than he did in WWE, and that's just me being honest. So, what does the future hold for Kevin Knight now turned heel? You know, I tell you one thing: people didn't like the way Ricochet did it, but then all of a sudden it started to grow on people in a good way, in a positive light of AEW fans. This could see fit doing this going forward. And I'm glad they're doing something with the newer generation coming through. Because when you get the guys that have been around a while, you know, the fan favourites, like in any wrestling company, at least one thing the fan favourites in AEW take a break for new generation coming through, which you've got to understand how strong this sort of males and females divisions are in AEW. Right, and that's just me being honest with you. Because you look at the way it is, right? I wish I did this on a separate video, I know. But I didn't have time, so I want to talk about something in a bit anyway. But the way they are doing certain shows, right? They're painting a picture for you guys to see future stars that are coming through. And this is why I tied in with what I'm talking about in a bit, don't worry. that you've got to think, right? AEW's been around since 2019 and they are getting it right. They're not focused on technically former WWE names, even though, yes, there is still in the mix, but they are pushing through the way there's certain attributes towards certain wrestlers that they want to future proof themselves. They've already got the four pillars already in their company that help start to get their names about. Now you've got the newer generation coming through, and they're highlighting that perfectly in AEW. That's why these fan favorites, even though it's in the women's division, you got the likes of Mercedes Moné, you got the likes of Tony Storm taking a break away from the limelight, so these guys can come through, such as like Tekla, such as like Kevin Knight. I know Kevin Knight's a male before anyone judges me for saying that, but they're taking that sort of stepping stone away. And then you've got the likes of MJF. Yes, he's the his third run on the age of 30, being the heavyweight champion. Unbelievable. So you got these sort of stars that are coming through, you know, with the mix of the experienced guys. You've got the likes of Will Ospreay. Yes, he's still young. Yes, he's a household name. Yes, he's a fan favorite. But he's a, how to put it? He's a global brand. Kevin Knight isn't a global brand, but he could be one day because the amount of times I've heard on like interviews, such as the likes of when Will Ospreay was actually getting interviewed. I'm not sure if it was Mike Bailey or Kevin, you know, to put him over, like talking how great he is and everything. So that just shows you there's experienced guys that have been around a bit, got themselves a household name already, but they're elevating him to the next level. Look at Okada versus Taneshka. Taneshka is now that new champion that took away the belt away from Okada. He's building up to be a megastar towards AEW, and that's just me being honest. Tag team division, yes, does need a little work. Yes, it needs some new, fresh faces. Don't get me wrong. But Cope and Christian will do that when they will see fit the right to give to the championships. Now, I want to say this. I was really surprised with the Kevin Knight situation because I was hoping at one point we'll see the likes of Jet Speed. Yes, Jet Speed being tag team champions. It hasn't panned that way because the way Tony Khan's booked it. Now, that's just shows you in itself. You know, where you see one way that it could be going, but then it goes another. That's why I like watching AEW. But that's just my quick thoughts and opinions. Now, I just want to say this and get this out of the way. Sol Ruca being the women's IC champion is fantastic in WWE. But the problem is where I've said this for many years, within the last, I would say, 3 years, the women's division have carried that company. Pure, barrel, and simple. And I'll be honest with you, right? But when I look at this, right, you're doing, you're making it a massive deal saying the first black woman to be the women's IC champion. Yeah, it's history making, but the belt's not been around long to make it worthwhile. But it might be a stamping point, don't get me wrong. But for her to win over Becky, and the way Becky was in the ring at the end of the end of the fucking match that I saw the clip of her acting like she was crying, but there was no fucking tears. Come on, right? The problem where it lies when I will say this, it relies on WWE's booking right now. do something good with Sol Ruca. Sol Ruca is talented, don't get me wrong, from what I've seen. But the problem where it lies when it comes to Sol Ruca, I just don't want WWE to have the same run what Julia had with the Women's United States Championship. Like, hardly defending it and so on, you know? Tiffany Strand's got it right now. I don't recall her having a match. I could be wrong. She could have had one at Clash of Italy. But look how far she fell. You pushed her to the stratosphere. You gave her a match against Charlotte. Then all of a sudden, a year later, then all of a sudden she's not on the fucking card at WrestleMania. But I want to give you this. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Like I've said already, the women are dominating that company. They're making that company worthwhile for people to watch. People don't realise it. It's not just because of the old names coming back. But all I can say is this, right, with Sol Ruca being the Women's IC Championship, what's next for her? Who's she going to defend it to? Is she going to have a rematch against Becky in the United States and then lose it again? The thing is, I feel like when you look at the big card titles in some other companies, you're doing it justice. And this is where I tie in with AEW. Now, this is not me comparing, this is just me speaking my mind. You look at the Women's TBS Championship. That is being justified as a perfect mid-card title to push someone to the next level, sort of thing. But when they've actually got to that next level, they've actually crumbled. I'm talking about Mercedes Moné. When she literally had that title, people were complaining, oh, she's always in the spotlight, but she was having the mid-card title. She was making it worthwhile having. Then Willow Nightingale actually had a title shot against her and then took it off her because she was the one, if I remember rightly, took it from. And that's where it goes. When it goes to the likes of, when I look at the women's division WWE, they are dominating that company. And that's just me being honest. But the problem where it lies, even though the booking can be quite stale at times, they sort of get the women's division correctly, no matter if it's on Raw, SmackDown. Not much NXT because, like I say, I don't even have time to watch clips of that. But that's sad for me to say because why can't they do that justified towards the likes of the males division, right? Look at prime example. You got Cody Rhodes as your champion. It's so predictable what they're actually fucking doing with him, you know, because it's boring and static. You know, I'm not being funny, right? I'll say this, right? He faced Gunther at Clash of Castle. Clash of Italy, right? He didn't. He retained his title. Cody did. Considering he's taken on a guy that has retired two fucking wrestlers. That was on a dominating run. And it comes to Cody, oh, he can't beat him. It's pathetic. Yeah, you're putting Roman Reigns as your champion. On the other hand, you could have actually let Jacob Fatu have a week run with it. Or you could have actually had them until the next pay-per-view. It won't harm you to do a bit of differency. You know, you got to look at Jacob Fatu. You could have easily he's one of fan favourites. Right now, I've noticed that a lot of people talk about him. When I come across TikTok videos, come across YouTube videos, but you can't even fucking do that. At some point, just putting 5 pay-per-view matches, it's fucking stupid for the value that you are charging your customers. Yeah, I went on to that bit again. I can't justify that. And you know when people have dubbed AEW Double or Nothing as a strong pay-per-view candidate of this year, right? I saw a video that a guy was saying, would it have been better if they actually put some of the knockout phases towards the Night Champions thing? 3 matches on the card for that, like the warm up ones. What's that got to do with anything? It's literally the talent you are putting on your card. And that's what I mean. But like I say, with the women's division, yeah, it's dominating to the point where sometimes you book people wrong and overly book them. Look at Rhea Ripley, prime example. That's just me being honest. Look how far you can take this. If I remember rightly, Tiffany Stratton's still the US champion. Yeah, she's not defended her championship. And yet you see posts up saying, oh, she's had 100 days run. She's not defended her title. Maybe at house shows, but I'm on about TV stuff. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't get it right with the likes of the women. But that's just me being honest. But I'm just hoping for people that watch WWE to do Sol Ruca well. Put her in good matches, you know. If you go through the same old stale shit, I wouldn't mind if I was still watching the product. Like, prime example, she's defending that, like, on the main roster, but you've got the mixture of the women from NXT to give them a rub, like, to give them time, if you know what I mean, onto the likes of the weekly product on Raw or SmackDown to get your eyes on certain women and give that sort of thing. But who's she gonna be facing though? That's the thing. You've got to get that right chemistry right, you know. But that's just me being honest, you know. It's good that Becky took the fall and lose her belt. Because I'm not being funny, when I saw the clips of what Becky's been doing recently, it's been shocking. It's been poor. I didn't like the character when she started forming that character. She was better as the man, but she was never, since then, she's like fall off the wagon. That's just me being honest. Honesty is key when you're a wrestling fan. I know. But that's just my quick thoughts. Tell me yours. And I'll see you again for another video right here on Wrestling Fan Open My Night. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button and obviously hit that bell icon. Till next time, catch you guys soon.